As of recording this, Gotham Knights is set to be released on October 25th, 2022, which happens to be the 9th anniversary of WB Montreal's first game, Batman Arkham Origins. Now, I know a lot of people have different opinions on this game, but for me personally, I absolutely loved it. There may have been a few things holding it back, but overall, I think it's an incredible experience, especially considering the limited amount of time that the studio had to create this game. The gameplay is satisfying as always, the story is exhilarating, but more importantly, the characters are done right. A lot of the villains in the story have plenty of time to shine, but there's one in particular that really grabbed my attention, and that was Bane. I absolutely loved his inclusion in this game, and he also had not one, but two stellar boss fights. He was so awesome that the more and more I thought about it, the more I realized that this game might have the best adaptation of the character we've ever gotten, or at the very least, my favorite version of Bane. But to be clear, I have not seen every single interpretation of the character, so I won't be really talking about anything from Gotham, Lego Batman, or many of the animated media he's been in. However, from what I have seen, I am somewhat confident that most of the versions of Bane not mentioned in this video do not reach the same level as the versions from Arkham Origins or The Dark Knight Rises. With that being said, if you think there is a version of Bane that is really good that I don't mention in this video, feel free to let me know in the comments. Also remember that this video is expressing my opinion and just that. I am not saying that this version of Bane is definitively the best, but merely that this version is my favorite, and as favorites go, people tend to have different qualifications of what their favorite actually is. When I was a lot younger, one of my favorite villains was Bane. I still thought Joker was the best one, but when it came to favorite, Bane checked all the boxes. I thought it was so cool how he was not only really strong, but also extremely smart, and was one of the few people capable of defeating Batman. When he first appeared in Batman Vengeance of Bane Issue 1, it laid the foundation for a compelling origin story. Here was a child who was born in a prison and forced to live out his father's sentence, and through sheer will was able to reach his physical and intellectual peak, eventually breaking out of the prison and setting his sights on Gotham. The whole Nightfall storyline is one of my favorite comic book arcs, as it shows Bane breaking out all the inmates in Arkham and forcing Batman to try to catch them all, slowly wearing down the Dark Knight until Bane comes in to deliver the final blow. While Joker has become my favorite Batman villain now that I'm older, Bane is a close second. He has always been an intimidating presence in the comics, and continues to show that through his brute strength and intellectual prowess. Unlike Solomon Grundy or Killer Croc, Bane is a tactician, always trying to find the best way to bring down his opponent. This is a character that I absolutely loved when I was younger, and still love today. Because of his popularity, it was only a matter of time before he showed up in other Batman media. To be completely honest though, Bane hasn't gotten the best treatment when it comes to adaptations. The example everyone thinks of for a bad interpretation is Robert Swenson's version in the 1997 cinematic masterpiece known as Batman and Robin. Instead of being an extremely smart and powerful supervillain, this movie and numerous animated projects make him a dumb brute that is simply meant to be the muscle. This is a big problem because when you present Bane as this guy who's strong, but really dumb, you're missing out on all the best parts of the character. He's supposed to be extremely intelligent and not just some random thug. No disrespect towards Robert Swenson, because I'm pretty sure he did what he was supposed to do, but honestly, this version of Bane is much more silly and laughable than other interpretations of the character. Speaking of other adaptations, there is a huge problem with the majority of video games, movies, and shows that feature Bane. Most of the time, the character is used because people know him, recognize him, and get excited when he's on screen. But the problem is that he never really gets to do anything impactful. Sometimes he's not the main villain, sometimes he's just not threatening, and other times he's hardly there at all. Another big problem is the fact that Bane rarely gets to show his intelligence, and is reserved for muscle instead. Bane is not meant to be a dumb brute, but a force to be reckoned with, and in most instances when he does make an appearance, he hardly ever gets a chance to show what he is truly supposed to be, one of Batman's greatest enemies. And while we're on the subject of other adaptations, we've gotta address the giant elephant in the room.
Oh yeah!
Honestly, Rocksteady's interpretation of Bane is probably the most surprising out of all the different versions we've gotten. The studio is usually so good at accurately representing their characters in their games, but instead of a home run, Bane feels like a complete strikeout. He only serves as this extremely angry monster who is our introduction to the mechanics of Titan boss fights, and Arkham City is no improvement. He's always screaming about how he's going to break Batman, and in Arkham City he's dealt with way too easily. I can say at least it was fun fighting alongside him during his side mission in Arkham City, but other than that, this Bane is an absolute joke and nothing like his comic counterpart. Once again, this is one of the most surprising character designs that Rocksteady has ever done, and after all of these underwhelming adaptations, one would probably be wary of his appearance in Arkham Origins, especially considering the character's design in the previous 2 games. But thank goodness all those worries were put to rest. From the first time we see him in person, you get the impression that this Bane is different. Throughout the entire game, Bane continues to be one of the biggest threats to Batman, both physically and mentally. Anytime he's in the room, his presence is intimidating and his confidence in his abilities makes him a dangerous opponent. A bit of a side note, but his theme is really well done, so kudos to Christopher Drake. Complemented with 2 enjoyable boss fights, Bane continues to get the job done, and unlike Hugo Strange, he actually does something with the knowledge of Batman's real identity, and uses it to attack Bruce Wayne in his most vulnerable point. You see, Batman can take anything thrown at him, but it's losing those he loves without being able to do anything to stop it that scares him the most. Bane intends to use this loss to enrage Batman to the point that he will not stop until he has enacted his revenge, meaning he not only wants to bring down Batman, but also his moral code. Bane's plan doesn't work out, mostly due to some questionable medical procedures, but Bane is determined to break Batman's one rule, and he teams up with the Joker to present Batman with the ultimate challenge.
What our friend Bane holds in his hand is a heart monitor. Once he clamps it on, every beat of his vacant little heart will charge the battery on this electric chair. And when it's fully charged... So either you kill Bane...
No, I won't kill him.
But you will. You will fight me with all your resolve, or you will die. Someone is going to die. You, me, or the clown. The question of which one of us it is in your hands.
What's cool about villains like Bane and Joker is that they also try to challenge Batman's philosophies and beliefs, always trying to make Batman cross the line and give in to the darkness that has plagued him for so long. It's these scenarios where you realize that Batman can still lose, even if the villain is put behind bars after the dust settles. This is what makes Bane such an awesome addition in this game. He is an extremely skilled fighter that, combined with his tactical mind, creates one of Batman's most dangerous villains. This feels like the Bane I've always wanted, the perfect combination of brain and brawn. And to be honest, he just looks freaking awesome. I mean, come on, it's Bane. On top of that, they are able to explain why his character design is so much different in Arkham Asylum. Bane injects himself with TN1, a compound similar to Venom that is much more dangerous. Now, to be fair, I don't think it necessarily helps the character that much by making him more of a monster than what he normally is, but first off, it provides a great stealth boss fight. And second, Bane is still pretty smart. As you're trying to hide from him, he will constantly be searching in grates and vents, as well as anticipating attacks from behind. I don't know if anything will be quite as scary as playing this boss for the first time and looking out of a vent to see Bane on the other side. Besides, this gives more cohesion for the series as a whole, and explains why he went from this to this. It would have been very strange to play this game and then see Bane as he is in Asylum. It also helps the developers eliminate the danger of Bane knowing Batman's secret identity, due to the fact that TN1 affects the user's memory, which admittedly is kind of convenient. Regardless, I think it was an important thing to incorporate into the story and doesn't really ruin the character in my eyes. To me, this is the Bane from the comics and the perfect adaptation I've always wanted. Also, J.B. Blanc, the voice actor for Bane, did an amazing job voicing the character and is by far my favorite voice for Bane. Now, after all this talk about how great the character is, you might have noticed that I left out a very important detail. You see, there was a little movie that came out in 2012 called The Dark Knight Rises, and Bane is actually the main villain, played by none other than Tom Hardy. Now, to be completely honest, I absolutely love Bane in this movie. Despite being very different from the comics with a completely new design and not having any access to Venom, Bane is still as intimidating as ever. He has so many great lines that Tom Hardy delivers extremely well, and we get to see more of his intellectual side than we do in Arkham Origins, to some extent. Yes, I know the voice is kind of funny.
Word of the truth about despair.
But this version of character is certainly not as bad as this.
I will break you, Batman! Then the Bruja!
The Dark Knight Rises version of Bane is still a massive threat to Batman, and this is no doubt the best version we've gotten on the big screen. And that's something I really appreciate about Tom Hardy's Bane. With that being said, there is a big reason why I prefer Arkham Origins Bane over the Dark Knight Rises Bane. You see, Bane, for as awesome as he is in The Dark Knight Rises, is not Bane from the comics. He's Christopher Nolan's version of Bane, and that's okay. Having this character be less like his comic book version benefits the overall story and makes more sense in the context of the film, and this goes for other characters as well. Not all characters have to be 100% comic accurate. A character is not bad just because it's not exactly how it was in the source material, as long as the new version stays true to the main ideas of the character and what they represent. I can look at Tom Hardy's version and be on board with thinking he's Bane despite the fact that he doesn't really look like this. So for me, Bane in The Dark Knight Rises is the best possible version for Christopher Nolan's Bane, while Bane in Arkham Origins is the best possible version of Bane as we usually see him in the comics. As a big comic book fan, the one that's closer to the original version is most likely going to be my favorite, as long as both are about the same in terms of quality. There are no doubt going to be so many people who like Tom Hardy's Bane more, and that's okay. Different versions appeal to different people. This is why some people prefer Tom Holland as Spider-Man, while others enjoy Tobey Maguire or Andrew Garfield's version more. I prefer Bane in Arkham Origins more than Bane in The Dark Knight Rises because Bane in Arkham Origins feels more in line with the Bane from the original source material, but to be clear, I absolutely love both versions of the character. Now, there is one more reason that shows why Arkham Origins Bane is so impressive, and that goes with the nature of Bane as a character. Question: what do Bane, Thanos, and Doomsday all have in common? They were villains created to win. When one thinks of Thanos, we think of the Infinity Gauntlet and wiping out half of all life. When we think of Doomsday, we think of the one character who actually killed Superman. And when we think of Bane, we think of breaking Batman's back. These characters were designed to win from the moment that they were created, or at least during their first big storyline in the case of Thanos. Doomsday's first appearance ended with him killing the Man of Steel, and Thanos succeeded in wiping out half of the universe in both his Infinity Gauntlet storyline and his cinematic debut in Avengers Infinity War. And Bane, of course, succeeded in breaking Batman's back in his first storyline in the comics, as well as in The Dark Knight Rises. When these villains win, it establishes their reputation as the ones who actually beat the hero and succeeded. And though their successes are almost always undone, most people will still remember them as the villain who won. This makes them some of the most recognizable villains in comics. But there's a big downside to this. Since these characters reached their peak during their debut, any future appearance won't have the same impact as the one where they won, unless they reboot and repeat the storyline. This is why Doomsday will never be as intimidating during his second appearance, because anything he does will never be as impactful as when he killed Superman. But see, that's the crazy thing about Bane in Arkham Origins. He is such a great adaptation of the character, but he doesn't win. He doesn't break Batman's back, and yes, there are instances that reference him breaking Batman's back, as well as various opportunities where he could have, but the best thing about this version of Bane is that the developers decided to focus on Bane as a character instead of focusing on his most famous feat. Arkham Origins Bane proves that characters can be properly adapted without the need of including the moment that made them famous. It shows that characters like Bane, Doomsday, and Thanos don't have to be defined by a single accomplishment, but who they are as characters and as villains. Batman Arkham Origins might not be a perfect game, but it gave us an incredible Batman experience with one of the best adaptations of Bane in any form of Batman media. He might not be everyone's favorite, but he's certainly mine. If there's anything you think I left out, or any version of Bane you think that's underrated, or if you just want to express your thoughts, feel free to do so in the comments. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.